This is what we call soft power, where you're overpowering a population of people unbeknownst to them. They're hurting themselves, though they think what they're doing is by their own volition and actually comes from their own identity. It's similar to how they shape the identity of populations through culture and media, etc. And whilst we're thinking we're creating our own identity, we're being fed this culture. This culture is being designed by corporations, etc. So soft power is state relies on pseudo-individualism, i.e. communitarianism. So what we see today in the new progressive movement is a lot of this so-called individualism. My truth is my truth. I have green hair, I choose to live a alternative lifestyle, so I'm unique and I'm different. But really, you're just part of a group. It's an in-group communitarian population of people who are just joining these little enclaves of vibe and aesthetic and political beliefs. And what you'll find is, though they may differ in appearance or music they listen to or lingo they use or location, they all have a similar worldview, and they all have a similar political position, which tends to be new progressivism that also aligns perfectly with movements like the World Economic Forum. So in fact, they just become tools for this type of technocratic movement under the guise of individualism and freedom and liberty, because they're free to be weird, be strange, do very degenerate things. The degenerate alternative lifestyle is propped up as virtuous, and this emboldens them and creates this false sense of identity when it's actually been designed for them. So citizens believe that certain acts are in their own best interest or are integral to ideal selfhood. Thus, they engage willingly in these acts. They engage willingly because they believe this is actually integral to their ideal selfhood. So they create an ideal. They're like, this is the ideal person, someone who wears a mask, someone who gets injected for their family and friends and to protect the greater good and slow the spread. Someone who isn't afraid to say that they're confused about their sexuality or their gender. Someone who promotes the fact that polyamory or pansexuality gives them empowerment. All of these things are ideal selfhood. This is true bravery. So they create this false paradigm. And people willingly engage with these acts, not only because they're confused and they're easily manipulated because of that confusion. They have no spiritual foundation. They don't really aim to learn anything about the world outside of their own desires and flesh. Not only those things exist, but they think these ventures are altruistic. They think these ventures are pure and virtuous, and it makes them feel good about themselves. And really, it just comes down to neuroticism and narcissism, really, when you get down to the crux of it. But they exploit these groups. They exploit this aspect of the very sick population that we tend to live in. Altruism and fairness as ways to achieve optimal self. So for me to be my best self, not only do I have to follow these empowering progressive ideals, but also within these ideals is this sense of altruism and fairness, which isn't, I'm not saying altruism is bad, but it's a weaponized version of it, right? When you see someone that doesn't agree with your political perspective, someone who possibly believes in something you don't believe, you don't have this type of altruistic perspective towards them. Empathy seems to stop when your worldview is not agreed upon. This is unstable. This is double-minded. This is pure nonsense. So the house of cards falls completely when you realize that none of this is consistent. And in fact, you discover that these people are rather insane. And that's all by design, because these populations are tools. And you see the same thing on the right. You see the same thing through certain MAGA groups and identitarian factions, just playing the other side, but they're all being used and they're all fulfilling the goals of these technocratic states.